Are you really in control of your life? Or are you, like so many of us, simply reacting to an endless stream of notifications, distractions, and fleeting pleasures? Think about it. When was the last time you made a decision purely for yourself, not influenced by an algorithm, a trend, or the pressure to consume? In this video, we're going to dive deep into the hidden trap of modern life, a trap that disguises itself as freedom but secretly robs us of our autonomy, our purpose, and our connection to what truly matters. We're breaking down how our endless pursuit of instant gratification, whether it's scrolling through social media, binge-watching shows, or chasing the next big thing, isn't just keeping us distracted. It's keeping us from living intentionally. And the best part? I'm going to show you how to flip the script, how to transform fleeting pleasures into powerful tools for growth, how to reclaim your purpose, and how to build a life that feels fulfilling and authentic. But before we dive in, let's work together to spread this message. If you find yourself resonating with this journey of rediscovering purpose and living with intention, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to the channel for more thought-provoking content like this. And if you'd like to support this channel directly, hit that super thanks button below. It helps us create more videos that inspire change. Now, let's get started on this transformative journey. You won't want to miss what's coming next. We live in a time where the pursuit of pleasure dominates our daily lives. But beneath this seemingly harmless quest lies a deeper question. Are we truly in control of our desires? Or have we unknowingly surrendered our autonomy to forces that manipulate us? Aldous Huxley's Brave New World envisioned a future where humanity wasn't controlled by pain, but by the allure of comfort. Today, when we look at our routines, endless hours scrolling social media, compulsive online shopping, and chasing fleeting moments of validation, aren't we already living in the very reality he predicted? Consider the concept of the golden cage, a metaphor that reflects our modern condition. The cage is luxurious, filled with everything you think you need: entertainment, convenience, and comfort. Yet the doors are locked, and while you may not even notice the bars, they're still there. This cage is built on our pursuit of immediate pleasure, a pursuit that feels liberating but, in truth, keeps us trapped. Social media platforms and streaming services offer endless content to consume. But how often do we pause to reflect on why we're so drawn to them? Is it because they bring us genuine joy? Or because they're designed to exploit our biological wiring? The answer lies in our brains, specifically in the neurotransmitter dopamine, often mischaracterized as the pleasure molecule. In reality, dopamine is not about experiencing pleasure. It's about the anticipation of it. It drives us to seek rewards, making us crave that next notification ping, that viral video, or that limited time sale. But the catch is that the satisfaction dopamine promises is fleeting. Think of the last time you refreshed your social media feed. You might have felt a momentary thrill at seeing a new like or comment, but it quickly faded, leaving you reaching for more. This endless loop of seeking without true fulfillment mirrors the hamster wheel, always spinning but never arriving anywhere. Historically, this system of desire helped humans survive. Dopamine drove us to hunt for food, find shelter, and build connections. But in the modern world, this survival mechanism has been hijacked. Tech companies and advertisers understand how to manipulate our brain chemistry, creating products and experiences that keep us hooked. Consider mobile games designed with constant rewards, or social media platforms that notify you just often enough to keep you engaged. The result is a society where distraction is the default, and moments of stillness or reflection feel uncomfortable or even unbearable. But this phenomenon isn't just a personal issue. It shapes entire cultures. As Neil Postman pointed out in Amusing Ourselves to Death, entertainment has become the dominant lens through which we view the world. Everything from politics to education is now packaged for our amusement. This shift has profound consequences. When everything must entertain us to hold our attention, depth and nuance are sacrificed. We skim headlines instead of reading articles, watch short clips instead of engaging with complex ideas, and choose convenience over critical thought. The more entertained we are, the less we question the systems around us. This addiction to distraction not only impacts our ability to think critically, but also disconnects us from our purpose. Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, argued that humans cannot live fulfilling lives without a sense of purpose. Yet modern society encourages us to avoid discomfort at all costs. Why face the hard work of self-discovery or long-term goals when you can binge-watch a series or scroll through TikTok instead? This constant search for comfort and avoidance of effort leads to a hollow existence. Even when surrounded by luxuries, many people feel a deep sense of emptiness because they're disconnected from what truly matters. To understand why this disconnection occurs, we must examine how our pursuit of pleasure affects our behavior. When we prioritize immediate gratification, we sacrifice our autonomy. Every time we choose to scroll mindlessly or make an impulse purchase, we are reacting rather than acting. Over time, these reactions become habits, and those habits shape who we are. Aristotle described a fulfilling life as one guided by effort and excellence, what he called eudaimonia. But our modern culture prioritizes hedonism instead, a life defined by comfort and ease. The question is, can a life without challenge or growth ever truly be satisfying? Think about the last time you worked hard to achieve something meaningful. Maybe you spent weeks learning a new skill, completing a challenging project, or deepening a relationship. The satisfaction you felt wasn't just in the result, but in the journey itself. That's the paradox of pleasure. True fulfillment often comes from effort, struggle, and growth, not from avoiding them. Modern distractions, however, rob us of these opportunities. When we choose the easy path over and over again, we lose the ability to pursue long-term goals and meaningful achievements. This isn't just an individual problem, it's a societal one. A culture that values immediate pleasure over long-term purpose becomes fragile. It loses its ability to innovate, to challenge injustices, and to create lasting change. Distraction becomes a form of control. When we're busy chasing likes, views, and discounts, we're not questioning power structures or addressing deeper issues like inequality or climate change. In this sense, the pursuit of pleasure doesn't just numb us, it pacifies us. It turns us into passive spectators of our own lives, rather than active participants. But this doesn't mean pleasure is inherently bad. The problem isn't pleasure itself, but the way we approach it. Pleasure can be a powerful force for good when it's aligned with purpose. The key is to shift from consuming mindlessly to engaging intentionally. For example, instead of binge-watching a show to escape reality, consider watching something that inspires you or teaches you something new. Instead of scrolling through social media, use it as a tool to connect with others in meaningful ways. The difference lies in mindfulness and intention. Mindfulness, as Thich Nhat Hanh taught, is about being fully present in each moment. When we drink a cup of coffee mindfully, savoring its aroma and taste, it becomes more than just a routine, it becomes an experience. Similarly, when we engage with pleasure intentionally, it stops being a distraction and starts being a source of genuine joy. This shift requires us to pause, reflect, and ask ourselves whether our choices align with the life we want to build. Reconnecting with purpose also means embracing discomfort. Growth often requires effort, patience, and persistence. Nietzsche famously said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." This why gives us the strength to endure challenges and find meaning in them. Planting a tree, learning a new language, or working on a passion project may not offer instant rewards, but the long-term satisfaction they provide far outweighs the fleeting pleasures of distraction. As we navigate this tension between pleasure and purpose, it's important to remember the role of human connection. Research consistently shows that relationships are the greatest source of happiness and fulfillment. In a world that often prioritizes individualism and superficiality, cultivating deep, meaningful bonds can be a radical act. Whether it's spending quality time with loved ones, engaging in your community, or simply sharing a meal with a friend, these moments ground us in what truly matters. Ultimately, the question isn't whether we should pursue pleasure, but how we can transform it into a tool for growth and connection. The choice is ours. We can continue chasing the illusion of happiness, or we can step back, reflect, and redefine what fulfillment means in our lives. But this is just the beginning of the journey. In the next part, we'll delve deeper into practical strategies for reclaiming autonomy and living more intentionally. What would it take to break free from the cycle of distraction and rediscover what truly matters? The illusion of freedom in modern society is a powerful concept, one that seems to permeate almost every aspect of our daily lives. This idea can be perfectly captured in the metaphor of the golden cage. Imagine yourself inside this exquisite structure, adorned with every comfort and luxury you could desire. Soft cushions to rest on, abundant food to keep you satisfied, and endless entertainment at your fingertips. From the inside, this cage doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like paradise. But here's the twist: you're not free to leave. The door is locked, and yet, you don't even notice. Because why would you want to leave when everything you need is already provided? This is the condition of many of us today, unknowingly trapped by the comforts and conveniences of modern life. Take a moment to reflect on your own routines. When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? Chances are, like many people, you reach for your phone without even thinking. You unlock the screen, scroll through notifications, check emails, glance at social media, but pause and ask yourself, is this act truly your own decision? Or is it the result of deeply ingrained habits shaped by algorithms designed to keep you engaged? The truth is, much of what we believe to be choices are actually reactions. We're reacting to systems created to exploit our attention, to keep us tethered to our screens and engaged with content that generates profit for corporations but leaves us feeling drained and unfulfilled. This illusion of freedom isn't just about technology. It's woven into the very fabric of consumer culture. We are constantly bombarded with choices: what to buy, what to watch, where to eat. On the surface, it feels empowering to have so many options. But how often do those choices lead to genuine satisfaction? How often do they reflect what you truly want, as opposed to what you've been influenced to believe you want? Imagine walking into a grocery store and being overwhelmed by hundreds of cereal brands. Does that abundance of choice make you feel freer? Or does it paralyze you, leaving you to pick the option with the flashiest packaging or the best marketing campaign? This is the paradox of choice. The more options we have, the less free we feel, because the choices themselves are curated and influenced by external forces. The golden cage metaphor is especially relevant when we think about how entertainment functions in our lives. Social media platforms, streaming services, and video games are engineered to keep us hooked. They provide constant dopamine hits, small bursts of pleasure that make us crave more. Think about how easy it is to lose hours scrolling through TikTok or binge watching a Netflix series. These platforms are designed to make us forget about time, to immerse us in a cycle of consumption that feels enjoyable in the moment, but ultimately leaves us empty. And just like the cage, we don't feel trapped because it's so comfortable. It's easier to stay inside and consume than to step outside and face the discomfort of reflection or growth. Let's use a widely relatable example: food delivery apps. They offer an incredible convenience. With just a few taps, you can have your favorite meal delivered to your doorstep, but consider the trade-off. The ease of ordering takes away the effort of cooking, an activity that could bring creativity, mindfulness, and even connection if done with others. Instead of engaging with the process of making a meal, we settle for convenience. And while the food may taste good in the moment, it doesn't satisfy us in the same way a home-cooked meal might. Over time, we begin to lose touch with the value of effort and the joy that comes from creating something for ourselves. This same dynamic plays out in our relationship with social media. Platforms like Instagram and Twitter give us the illusion of connection. But how often do those connections feel meaningful? Think about how many hours you've spent liking posts, leaving comments, or scrolling through other people's curated lives. Does it make you feel closer to others? Or does it leave you comparing yourself to them, feeling inadequate or disconnected? The promise of connection is there, but the reality often falls short. The cage, once again, is gilded, but it's still a cage. The problem with this illusion of freedom is that it keeps us distracted from asking deeper questions. When we're busy chasing the next moment of pleasure, whether it's a new purchase, a viral video, or a fleeting social media interaction, we rarely stop to consider whether these activities align with our true values or long-term goals. Who has the time to reflect on life's purpose when there's a new show to binge or a limited-time sale to snag? Distraction becomes a form of control. By keeping us focused on immediate gratification, the systems around us ensure we don't have the mental or emotional space to challenge them. This isn't just a critique of technology or consumerism, it's a critique of how we've allowed comfort to dominate our priorities. Growth, creativity, and meaningful connections often require effort and discomfort. They require us to step outside the cage and confront the challenges of the real world. But when everything we need seems to be within reach, why bother? This is the paradox we must confront. The comforts that make life easier also make it harder to live fully. A striking example of this is the rise of binge-watching culture. Streaming services like Netflix release entire seasons of shows at once, encouraging viewers to consume episode after episode in one sitting. On the surface, this seems like a harmless way to relax. But what happens when this becomes a habit? Instead of engaging with stories in a meaningful way, we consume them passively, often forgetting details or losing interest halfway through. The act of watching becomes less about enjoyment and more about distraction. We're not watching because we love the show. We're watching because we don't want to face the silence or discomfort of doing nothing. This dynamic is further complicated by the role of algorithms. Platforms like YouTube and Instagram are designed to keep us scrolling, recommending content based on what we've already consumed. While this may seem helpful, it often traps us in echo chambers, reinforcing our existing preferences and limiting our exposure to new ideas. The algorithms are like the bars of the golden cage, subtly shaping our behavior without our awareness. We believe we're making choices, but in reality, those choices have been heavily influenced by invisible forces. The most troubling aspect of this illusion is that it disconnects us from ourselves. When we spend so much time reacting to external stimuli, we lose touch with our inner desires and values. How often do we ask ourselves why we're doing what we're doing? Why do we reach for our phones first thing in the morning? Why do we feel compelled to check notifications, even when we know they won't bring anything meaningful? These are questions worth pondering, but the pace of modern life leaves little room for such reflection. And yet, recognizing this dynamic is the first step toward change. Once we see the bars of the cage, we can begin to question whether the comfort it provides is worth the cost. We can start to make more intentional choices, aligning our actions with our values instead of reacting to habits and algorithms. It's not about rejecting pleasure altogether, but about redefining it, finding joy in meaningful experiences rather than fleeting distractions. And as we explore this idea further, we'll uncover practical strategies for breaking free from the cycle of instant gratification and reclaiming the freedom to live authentically. Dopamine plays a critical role in the pleasure trap we find ourselves in today, yet it is often misunderstood. Many think of it as the pleasure molecule, the chemical responsible for the feeling of happiness. In reality, dopamine is not about the pleasure itself. It's about the pursuit of pleasure. It drives us to seek rewards, pushing us to chase things that promise satisfaction. The anticipation of getting the reward the moment before you open your favorite app, click buy on a new gadget, or see a notification pop up is where dopamine is most active. Ironically, the pursuit often ends up being more satisfying than the reward itself. This mechanism, which evolved to help humans survive by motivating us to seek food, shelter, and mates, has been hijacked in the modern world. Social media apps are perhaps the most glaring example of this hijacking. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook are designed with precision to exploit our dopamine system. Every time you receive a like, comment, or new follower, your brain gets a small dopamine hit, reinforcing the behavior that led to it. But here's the catch: the satisfaction is temporary, and it fades quickly, leaving you craving more. This is why you find yourself compulsively refreshing your feed, scrolling endlessly, or constantly checking for notifications. The promise of gratification keeps you hooked, but the actual experience never quite lives up to the anticipation. It's a carefully designed loop, engineered to keep you engaged for as long as possible. The hamster wheel analogy is a fitting way to describe this cycle. Picture a hamster running endlessly on a wheel. It expends energy, believing it's getting somewhere, but the wheel keeps spinning, and the hamster never actually moves forward. This is exactly what happens when we chase dopamine-fueled rewards in modern life. We buy the latest gadgets, stream the hottest TV shows, or consume viral content, thinking these will bring us happiness or fulfillment. And yet, once the novelty wears off, we're back on the wheel, chasing the next thing. The wheel never stops, and we never truly feel satisfied. Consider online shopping as another example. You browse a website, find an item you like, and hit the Add to Cart button. The anticipation builds as you imagine how great it will feel to own that item. Then you check out, and for a brief moment, you experience a rush of satisfaction. But once the item arrives, the excitement fades, and it's on to the next thing. The dopamine system isn't wired to make you happy. It's wired to keep you seeking, and this constant seeking often leaves us feeling unfulfilled. The problem with this cycle isn't just that it keeps us chasing empty rewards, it's that it rewires our brains over time. The more we rely on these dopamine triggers, the more our brains adapt, requiring greater stimulation to achieve the same effect. This is known as tolerance, and it's the same phenomenon that occurs with drug addiction. What once gave you a dopamine rush, a single notification, a short viral video, no longer feels as exciting. So you seek more intense or frequent stimuli to achieve the same level of satisfaction. Social media algorithms are perfectly attuned to this dynamic. They increase the intensity and volume of the content they feed you, ensuring you stay on the platform longer, consuming more, and giving them more data to monetize. It's not just social media and shopping. Food is another area where our dopamine systems have been hijacked. Think about fast food and junk food, engineered to deliver maximum flavor and satisfaction in minimal time. The combination of sugar, fat, and salt triggers a powerful dopamine response, making these foods incredibly rewarding. But as with social media, the pleasure fades quickly, leaving you craving more. This is why it's so easy to eat an entire bag of chips or reach for dessert even when you're not hungry. The cycle of seeking and consuming overrides your ability to stop and ask whether you're truly satisfied. Streaming platforms like Netflix and YouTube also exploit this mechanism. Autoplay features and algorithm-driven recommendations ensure that as soon as one video or episode ends, another begins. You might start watching with the intention of viewing a single episode, but before you know it, hours have passed, and you've watched an entire season. The platform has kept your dopamine system engaged, feeding you just enough satisfaction to keep you watching, but never enough to make you feel truly content. The impact of this dopamine-driven culture extends beyond our individual lives. It shapes our society as a whole, creating a culture of instant gratification where patience and long-term thinking are devalued. When we're constantly chasing the next dopamine hit, we lose our ability to focus on deeper, more meaningful pursuits. Why spend months learning a new skill or working toward a challenging goal when you can get a quick burst of satisfaction from a trending TikTok or an online sale? The result is a society that prioritizes short-term rewards over long-term fulfillment, leaving many of us feeling empty despite being surrounded by comforts and conveniences. This dynamic also affects our relationships. Social media gives us the illusion of connection, but the interactions it fosters are often shallow and fleeting. A like on your post or a quick comment might feel good in the moment, but it doesn't compare to the depth of a real, face-to-face conversation. Over time, we begin to prioritize these superficial interactions, chasing the dopamine they provide, while neglecting the effort required to build meaningful, lasting relationships. This contributes to a growing sense of loneliness and disconnection, even in an age where we're more connected than ever. The irony of the dopamine trap is that it's self-perpetuating. The more we chase these fleeting rewards, the less capable we become of finding satisfaction in anything else. Activities that once brought us joy, reading a book, spending time in nature, or having a deep conversation, can start to feel dull or uninteresting compared to the high-speed, high-intensity rewards of modern life. Our brains, conditioned to expect constant stimulation, struggle to find pleasure in the slower, more deliberate experiences that actually bring lasting fulfillment. Breaking free from this cycle requires a conscious effort to rewire our relationship with dopamine. It starts with awareness, recognizing when we're caught in the loop of seeking and asking whether the rewards we're chasing are truly worth it. For example, instead of reaching for your phone every time you're bored, try sitting with the discomfort of that boredom and allowing your mind to wander. You might be surprised at the clarity and creativity that emerge when you're not constantly distracted. Another strategy is to intentionally create space for activities that bring deeper, more meaningful rewards. This could mean setting boundaries around your use of technology, like turning off notifications or setting time limits on apps. It might involve investing time in hobbies or projects that require effort and patience, like learning an instrument, gardening, or volunteering. These activities may not provide the instant gratification of a viral video or a shopping spree, but they offer a deeper sense of satisfaction that can't be replicated by quick dopamine hits. Dopamine isn't the enemy. It's a vital part of what makes us human, driving us to explore, create, and achieve. The challenge is to harness its power in ways that align with our values and long-term goals, rather than letting it control us. When we learn to balance the pursuit of pleasure with the pursuit of purpose, we can begin to step off the hamster wheel and reclaim our autonomy. And as we explore how to integrate these insights into our daily lives, we'll uncover new ways to find fulfillment without falling into the traps set by a dopamine-driven culture. Entertainment has woven itself so deeply into the fabric of our society that it now functions as more than just a source of leisure. It has become a tool of distraction and, in some ways, a system of control. Neil Postman, in Amusing Ourselves to Death, argued that entertainment has transformed from a recreational activity to the dominant lens through which we experience life. Politics, education, relationships, and even our understanding of ourselves are now filtered through the need to entertain. What was once a way to unwind has become a pervasive force that shapes how we perceive the world and, more importantly, how we engage with it or fail to engage with it. Consider the way entertainment influences politics. Campaigns are no longer judged by the strength of their ideas or policies, but by their ability to captivate an audience. Debates, once serious forums for intellectual exchange, have devolved into theatrical performances where zingers and soundbites carry more weight than substantive arguments. Voters aren't asked to reflect deeply on the issues. Instead, they are presented with a spectacle designed to grab their attention. It's no coincidence that candidates who excel in creating viral moments often dominate the conversation. Even if their ideas lack depth, the need to entertain has replaced the need to inform. This same phenomenon extends to education, where the focus increasingly shifts toward keeping students engaged rather than fostering critical thinking. Lessons are packaged like bit-sized videos or gamified experiences to hold attention spans that have been eroded by constant stimulation. While these methods may make learning more accessible, they often come at the cost of depth and complexity. Instead of grappling with challenging ideas, students are fed simplified versions that entertain without encouraging the kind of sustained focus and effort necessary for true understanding. The result is a generation trained to seek quick answers and immediate gratification, leaving them ill-equipped to confront the nuanced problems of the real world. In our personal relationships, entertainment culture fosters superficiality. Social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok prioritize content that is visually appealing or emotionally sensational, encouraging us to curate our lives into highlight reels rather than authentic representations. We scroll through endless streams of carefully edited moments, comparing ourselves to idealized versions of others and losing sight of what real connection looks like. The pressure to entertain, even in our personal lives, creates a barrier to meaningful interaction. Instead of having deep conversations, we focus on capturing shareable moments. Instead of building intimacy, we aim for likes. This constant stimulation doesn't just distract us, it reshapes how we think and feel. A friend of mine once confessed they'd spent hours watching Instagram reels, only to realize afterward that they couldn't recall a single meaningful thing they'd seen. This story perfectly encapsulates how entertainment robs us of intentional engagement with life. We consume so much content that it becomes a blur, leaving us with a vague sense of wasted time, but no lasting impressions or insights. The need to be constantly entertained diminishes our ability to sit with boredom, reflect, or engage with the deeper questions of meaning and purpose. Entertainment culture thrives on our inability to tolerate stillness. The moment we feel a pang of boredom, we reach for our phones or turn on the TV. Silence and solitude, which were once opportunities for introspection, have become uncomfortable voids to be filled with noise and distraction. But what do we lose when we fill every quiet moment with entertainment? We lose the chance to connect with ourselves. We lose the opportunity to ask, what do I truly want? What matters to me? Instead of exploring our inner worlds, we drown them out with endless streams of content designed to keep us passive. The danger of this passivity extends beyond the individual. When a society is constantly entertained, it loses its capacity for critical thought and resistance. Distraction becomes a form of control. If we're always focused on the next episode, the next trend, or the next viral video, we're less likely to question the systems that shape our lives. We become spectators rather than participants, content to watch events unfold rather than take action to shape them. This is particularly evident in how social issues are handled in the age of entertainment. Activism is often reduced to performative gestures, hashtags, viral challenges, or symbolic posts that create the illusion of engagement without requiring any real effort or sacrifice. While these actions may raise awareness, they rarely lead to meaningful change, as the focus is more on visibility than on substance. Take, for instance, how environmental issues are presented in mainstream media. Instead of delving into the complexities of climate change and its systemic causes, we're given entertaining but simplified narratives. Documentaries focus on charismatic animals or visually stunning landscapes, tugging at our heartstrings but often glossing over the hard truths about corporate responsibility or political inaction. While these pieces may inspire fleeting emotional reactions, they rarely equip viewers with the tools or knowledge to take meaningful action. The result is a public that feels informed but remains largely inactive, lulled into complacency by the spectacle of it all. Even our hobbies and leisure activities have been commodified by the entertainment industry. Streaming services like Netflix and YouTube are designed to keep us watching for as long as possible, using autoplay features and algorithm-driven recommendations to ensure we never stop. Gaming companies create addictive mechanics that reward us just enough to keep us coming back for more. The line between entertainment and addiction becomes blurred, leaving us with little control over how we spend our time. What starts as a harmless way to unwind often spirals into hours of mindless consumption, leaving us wondering where the day went. The pervasive influence of entertainment culture also affects our ability to engage with reality. When everything is presented as a spectacle, we begin to expect life itself to be entertaining. We lose patience for the mundane, the difficult, and the slow. Relationships, careers, and personal growth, all of which require time, effort, and resilience, become less appealing when compared to the instant gratification offered by entertainment. This shift in expectations creates a cycle of dissatisfaction. The more we consume, the less satisfied we feel, and the more we seek out new distractions to fill the void. But perhaps the most insidious aspect of entertainment culture is how it warps our sense of identity. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok encourage us to see ourselves as performers, constantly curating our lives for an audience. We begin to measure our worth by the attention we receive, equating visibility with value. This not only fuels insecurity but also creates a shallow sense of self, one that depends on external validation rather than internal confidence. The need to entertain becomes a burden, forcing us to prioritize appearance over authenticity. Despite all of this, it's important to recognize that entertainment itself is not the enemy. It has the potential to inspire, educate, and connect us. The problem lies in how it's used as a tool for distraction rather than engagement, for pacification rather than empowerment. To reclaim our autonomy, we must learn to consume entertainment intentionally rather than passively. This means setting boundaries, choosing content that aligns with our values, and making time for activities that foster growth and connection. It also means embracing boredom and stillness as opportunities for reflection rather than problems to be solved. The question we must ask ourselves is this: are we using entertainment, or is it using us? By becoming more aware of how distraction shapes our thoughts and behaviors, we can begin to break free from its grip and reclaim our ability to engage with life on our own terms. But this is only the beginning. As we move forward, we'll explore the deeper implications of this dynamic, uncovering how the systems that profit from distraction affect not just our individual lives, but the very fabric of society itself. The disconnect between pleasure and purpose is one of the defining dilemmas of modern life. Viktor Frankl, in Man's Search for Meaning, argued that human beings cannot live fulfilled lives without a sense of purpose. He observed that even in the direst circumstances, those who found meaning in their suffering were able to persevere, while those who lacked it often succumbed to despair. Yet, in today's society, we've largely abandoned this pursuit of purpose in favor of comfort. Modern culture equates happiness with the absence of discomfort, teaching us to avoid effort or pain at all costs. While this might seem appealing on the surface, it creates a void that no amount of pleasure can fill. This disconnect is evident in how we approach nearly every aspect of life. We've replaced Aristotle's concept of eudaimonia, a life of striving for excellence and purpose, with a modern version of hedonism, where immediate gratification takes precedence. Aristotle saw eudaimonia as the ultimate goal, achieved through effort, discipline, and a commitment to living virtuously. In contrast, modern hedonism teaches us to chase fleeting pleasures, whether through entertainment, consumption, or convenience. While pleasure can provide a momentary escape, it often leaves us feeling hollow when the novelty fades. Take the example of learning a new skill, like playing an instrument. At first, it's frustrating. Your fingers might hurt, the notes sound wrong, and you feel like you're making no progress. It's tempting to quit and do something easier, like scrolling through TikTok or watching Netflix. But if you push through the discomfort, something remarkable happens. Gradually, your fingers adjust, the notes start to come together, and you create something beautiful. The sense of accomplishment you feel at that moment is far deeper and more satisfying than the fleeting dopamine hit from mindless scrolling. Yet, the culture we live in rarely encourages us to pursue such long-term rewards. Instead, it offers shortcuts that promise happiness without effort. But these shortcuts often lead to emptiness. This preference for immediate gratification is everywhere. Consider how we consume food. Cooking a meal from scratch takes time, effort, and patience, but the result is not only nourishing but also deeply rewarding. In contrast, ordering fast food or microwaving a prepackaged meal is quicker and easier, but it lacks the same sense of fulfillment. The act of preparing a meal engages the senses, requires creativity, and often involves sharing with others, all of which contribute to a sense of purpose. Yet, we've normalized convenience to the point where the idea of cooking feels like a chore rather than an opportunity. The same dynamic plays out in relationships. Building deep, meaningful connections takes time, vulnerability, and effort. It requires navigating disagreements, showing up for others, and being present even when it's inconvenient. However, modern society often prioritizes superficial interactions that offer quick validation. Social media, for instance, allows us to connect with hundreds or even thousands of people at the touch of a button. But how many of those connections are truly meaningful? The likes and comments we receive might feel good in the moment, but they don't provide the deep sense of belonging and support that comes from genuine relationships. Over time, this focus on shallow interactions can leave us feeling more isolated and disconnected than ever. Our careers are another area where the disconnect between pleasure and purpose is painfully evident. Many people chase jobs that promise high salaries or prestige, believing these will bring happiness. While financial stability and recognition are important, they rarely provide lasting fulfillment on their own. True satisfaction comes from doing work that aligns with our values and contributes to something larger than ourselves. Yet, the pressure to achieve material success often pushes people into roles that feel empty or meaningless. As a result, They find themselves stuck in a cycle of working long hours to afford luxuries that bring only temporary pleasure, all while feeling unfulfilled at a deeper level. Entertainment culture further exacerbates this disconnect. Platforms like Netflix, YouTube, and TikTok are designed to offer endless streams of content, keeping us entertained but not engaged. When we binge watch a series or scroll through social media for hours, we might feel a temporary sense of enjoyment, but it's often followed by a feeling of emptiness. This is because passive consumption doesn't contribute to a sense of purpose. It distracts us from the discomfort of deeper questions like what we want out of life or what truly matters to us without offering any real answers. The problem isn't just that these distractions take up our time. It's that they shape how we think about happiness itself. When we're constantly exposed to images of others living seemingly perfect lives, whether it's influencers traveling to exotic locations or friends sharing their latest accomplishments, it's easy to believe that happiness is something external, something to be achieved through material success or social validation. This external focus pulls us further away from the internal work of finding purpose, which often involves grappling with discomfort, uncertainty, and failure. The impact of this disconnect extends beyond individuals. As a society, our obsession with comfort and convenience has made us less resilient and more passive. When faced with challenges, we're more likely to seek distractions than solutions. This is evident in how we approach social and environmental issues. Addressing climate change, for instance, requires collective effort, long-term thinking, and a willingness to make sacrifices. Yet, many of us turn to superficial gestures like sharing a post or signing an online petition while continuing to engage in behaviors that contribute to the problem. These actions provide a sense of satisfaction without requiring any real change, allowing us to avoid the discomfort of confronting our role in the issue. The good news is that breaking this cycle is possible. It starts with recognizing that true happiness and fulfillment come not from avoiding discomfort, but from embracing it. When we pursue activities that challenge us, engage our minds, and align with our values, we tap into a deeper sense of purpose that can't be achieved through passive consumption. This might mean setting aside time to work on a creative project, volunteering for a cause you care about, or investing in a meaningful relationship. These efforts require patience and persistence, but they also offer rewards that are far more profound than the fleeting pleasures of distraction. Reconnecting with purpose also involves reevaluating our relationship with pleasure. Pleasure itself isn't the enemy. It's an essential part of life. The problem arises when pleasure becomes an end in itself, divorced from purpose. When we approach pleasure mindfully, whether it's savoring a meal, enjoying a hobby, or spending time with loved ones, it becomes a source of joy and connection rather than a mere distraction. This shift requires us to slow down, reflect on what truly matters, and make choices that align with our long-term goals rather than our immediate desires. Ultimately, the disconnect between pleasure and purpose is a symptom of a larger issue: our reluctance to face discomfort. Growth, creativity, and fulfillment often involve struggle, but it's through this struggle that we find meaning. When we allow ourselves to engage with the challenges of life, rather than avoiding them, we open the door to a deeper, more satisfying existence. And as we continue to explore how to bridge this gap between pleasure and purpose, we'll uncover practical ways to integrate these insights into our daily lives, transforming the way we think about happiness and fulfillment. Reframing pleasure to reclaim autonomy requires a shift in how we approach our daily choices, experiences, and the very definition of satisfaction. In a world where instant gratification is the norm, true autonomy is found in slowing down, engaging intentionally, and aligning our actions with what genuinely matters to us. This process is not about rejecting pleasure, but transforming it into something meaningful and sustainable. The first step is mindfulness and presence. This might sound simple, but in practice, it can feel revolutionary in a culture that thrives on constant distractions. Mindfulness means being fully present in the moment, savoring each experience as it unfolds. Imagine drinking your morning coffee. Instead of scrolling through social media or multitasking, try focusing solely on the coffee, the warmth of the mug in your hand, the aroma rising from the cup, the richness of the flavor. As Thich Nhat Hanh wisely said, peace is every step. By bringing mindfulness to small, everyday actions, we train ourselves to slow down and appreciate life as it is, rather than constantly seeking the next distraction. This practice of presence extends beyond small rituals to larger aspects of life. For example, consider how you spend your free time. Instead of binge-watching a series to escape the stress of the day, try engaging in a hobby that requires your full attention, like painting, gardening, or playing an instrument. These activities not only ground you in the present moment, but also provide a deeper sense of fulfillment than passive consumption ever could. Mindfulness helps us break free from the autopilot mode of reacting to external stimuli, allowing us to make choices that reflect our values and aspirations. Embracing discomfort is another essential step in reclaiming autonomy. Modern society often teaches us to avoid pain and seek comfort at all costs. But growth and transformation are rarely found in the easy path. Friedrich Nietzsche's insight, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow," reminds us that purpose can make even the most challenging experiences worthwhile. Discomfort is not something to fear. It is a sign that we are pushing our boundaries and moving towards something meaningful. Take exercise as an example. Starting a new fitness routine is rarely enjoyable at first. Your muscles ache, you're out of breath, and it feels much easier to quit. But over time, as your body adapts and you start to see results, the initial discomfort transforms into pride and a sense of achievement. This principle applies to many areas of life: learning a new skill, pursuing a career goal, or investing in a relationship. The effort and struggle required to achieve these things may not provide immediate pleasure, but they lead to lasting satisfaction and a sense of accomplishment. The willingness to embrace discomfort also helps us resist the pull of distractions that offer quick but empty rewards. Social media, for instance, provides an endless stream of entertainment, but it rarely leaves us feeling fulfilled. By choosing to sit with discomfort, whether it's boredom, loneliness, or the challenge of self-reflection, we create space for more meaningful pursuits. Instead of reaching for your phone the moment you feel restless, consider journaling, meditating, or simply sitting quietly with your thoughts. These moments of discomfort can be transformative, helping you gain clarity about what truly matters in your life. Prioritizing meaningful connections is another crucial way to reframe pleasure and reclaim autonomy. Decades of research, including the Harvard Grant study, have shown that deep, authentic relationships are the greatest source of happiness and well-being. Yet, in the age of social media, our interactions are often shallow and transactional. We spend hours liking posts and sending quick messages, mistaking these actions for connection. True relationships, however, require time, effort, and vulnerability. Imagine a family dinner where phones are set aside, and everyone shares stories from their day. The laughter, the shared experiences, and the warmth of being together create a sense of belonging that no number of likes or comments could ever replicate. Or think about reconnecting with an old friend, reminiscing about shared memories, and catching up on each other's lives. These moments of genuine connection remind us of what it means to be human. They ground us in the present and fill us with a sense of purpose that far outweighs the fleeting pleasure of digital interactions. Building these connections also involves being intentional about how we spend our time and energy. Instead of spending hours scrolling through social media, consider using that time to strengthen your relationships. Call a friend, plan a coffee date, or volunteer for a community project. These actions not only bring joy to others, but also enrich your own life in profound ways. The fulfillment that comes from shared experiences and mutual support is incomparable to the hollow satisfaction of virtual engagement. Reframing pleasure also means reevaluating what we consume and why. Instead of mindlessly seeking entertainment, we can choose activities that align with our values and contribute to our growth. For example, watching a documentary about a topic you're passionate about can inspire new ideas and spark meaningful conversations. Reading a book, attending a workshop, or exploring a creative pursuit are all ways to find pleasure that is both enriching and purposeful. The goal is not to eliminate enjoyment, but to ensure that it serves a larger purpose rather than acting as a mere distraction. Ultimately, reclaiming autonomy requires us to question the narratives we've been taught about happiness and success. Modern culture often equates freedom with having unlimited choices, but true freedom comes from the ability to make intentional decisions that align with our values. This might mean saying no to things that don't serve us, whether it's an unhealthy habit, a toxic relationship, or an unrealistic expectation. It might mean slowing down in a world that glorifies busyness, allowing ourselves the time and space to reflect on what truly brings us joy. Reframing pleasure is not about rejecting the comforts and conveniences of modern life, but about using them wisely. It's about recognizing that the most meaningful experiences often require effort, patience, and presence. It's about finding balance, enjoying a Netflix series without letting it consume your entire evening, savoring a dessert without letting it replace a healthy diet, or scrolling through social media without letting it replace real-world connections. By approaching pleasure with mindfulness and intentionality, we can transform it from a fleeting escape into a source of lasting fulfillment. The journey to reclaiming autonomy is not easy, but it is deeply rewarding. It requires us to confront our habits, embrace discomfort, and prioritize what truly matters. And as we explore the ways to integrate these changes into our daily lives, we begin to see that pleasure and purpose are not mutually exclusive. They can coexist, each enriching the other. The question, then, is not whether we can break free from the cycle of distraction, but how we will choose to do so. As we continue, we'll delve deeper into practical strategies and explore the profound impact these changes can have on our lives and society as a whole. Purpose is the foundation of a fulfilling life, yet it is increasingly sidelined in a society dominated by distractions and instant gratification. When we prioritize fleeting pleasures over long-term goals, we lose something far more valuable: our autonomy, our ability to direct our own lives, and our connection to a deeper sense of meaning. The cost of this trade-off is not just individual, it reverberates throughout society, creating a culture that values convenience over commitment and superficial satisfaction over substantial change. At the heart of this problem is our obsession with distractions. In a world saturated with notifications, trending videos, and constant advertisements, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. Every moment is an opportunity to be entertained, to consume, or to react. But what happens when our lives are defined by this endless cycle of distractions? We become passive, going through the motions without ever stopping to reflect on whether our actions align with our values. A society consumed by distraction is one that accepts the status quo, because questioning or changing it requires a level of focus and intention that is increasingly rare. Consider the ways this plays out in everyday life. How often do we reach for our phones to escape a moment of boredom, only to find ourselves scrolling for hours? How often do we choose the path of least resistance, like ordering takeout instead of cooking a meal, or watching another episode instead of tackling a challenging project? These choices might seem trivial in isolation, but over time, they add up to a life spent reacting rather than acting. We become spectators in our own stories, passively consuming the experiences served to us rather than creating our own. The loss of purpose isn't just an abstract concept, it manifests in real, tangible ways. For instance, think about how many people feel disengaged from their work. They clock in and out, completing tasks for the sake of a paycheck, but rarely find meaning or fulfillment in what they do. This disconnection isn't necessarily because the work itself lacks value, but because it doesn't align with their personal goals or values. Without a sense of purpose, even the most comfortable or well-paying job can feel empty. The same applies to other areas of life. Relationships, hobbies, and even leisure activities lose their luster when they are pursued without intention. The implications of a distracted society extend beyond individual dissatisfaction. When a culture values short-term gratification above all else, it loses its ability to address complex, long-term challenges. Climate change, systemic inequality, and political polarization are all issues that require sustained effort and collective action. Yet, the distractions of modern life make it difficult to maintain focus on these problems, let alone work toward solutions. Social media, for example, allows us to feel engaged by sharing a post or signing an online petition. But these actions often lack the depth and commitment needed to create real change. This performative engagement, while comforting, keeps us stuck in a cycle of inaction. Reclaiming purpose begins with a fundamental shift in how we approach life. Instead of seeking constant stimulation, we must learn to embrace moments of stillness and reflection. These quiet moments are where purpose is born, not in the noise of distractions, but in the clarity of thought and introspection. It's in these moments that we can ask ourselves the hard questions. What do I want to contribute to the world? What values guide my decisions? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? These are not questions that can be answered in the span of a TikTok video or a Twitter thread. They require time, effort, and a willingness to sit with uncertainty. The journey toward purpose also involves taking ownership of our choices. Too often, we allow external forces, algorithms, peer pressure, societal expectations to dictate how we spend our time and energy. To live intentionally, we must reclaim this power, making decisions that reflect our true desires and priorities. This might mean saying no to opportunities that don't align with our goals, even if they seem appealing in the moment. It might mean stepping outside of our comfort zones to pursue something meaningful, even if it's difficult or uncertain. The path to purpose is rarely easy, but it is always worth it. Purpose is not just about what we do, it's about how we do it. Small, intentional actions can have a profound impact on our sense of fulfillment. For example, consider the difference between mindlessly going through your daily routine and approaching each task with intention. Preparing a meal, for instance, can be a mundane chore or a meaningful act, depending on how you approach it. When done with care and attention, even the simplest actions can become expressions of purpose. Another key aspect of purpose is connection. Studies have consistently shown that meaningful relationships are one of the greatest sources of happiness and fulfillment. Yet, in our pursuit of individual success and instant gratification, we often neglect the time and effort required to nurture these connections. Reclaiming purpose means prioritizing the people who matter most, whether that's spending quality time with family, supporting friends through challenges, or building community with like-minded individuals. These connections ground us, reminding us that our lives are part of something larger than ourselves. The question we must ask ourselves is this: are we the protagonists of our own lives, or are we merely spectators? To be a protagonist means to take action, to make choices that align with our values, and to shape the narrative of our lives. It means moving beyond the passive consumption of experiences and stepping into the role of creator. This doesn't mean we need to have all the answers or that every moment must be profound. It simply means approaching life with intention, making decisions that reflect who we are and what we stand for. Reclaiming purpose in a distracted society is not an easy task, but it is a necessary one. It requires us to confront the ways we've allowed distractions to dominate our lives and to take active steps toward change. It means shifting our focus from fleeting pleasures to meaningful actions, from the pursuit of comfort to the pursuit of growth. As we explore how to integrate this mindset into our daily lives, we'll uncover the tools and strategies needed to build a life of purpose and fulfillment. The journey begins with a simple but powerful question: what story do you want to tell with your life? Transforming pleasure into a tool for growth requires a deliberate reevaluation of how we approach our desires, habits, and choices. In a world where immediate gratification is often mistaken for happiness, aligning pleasure with purpose is a radical act of reclaiming control over our lives. This isn't about rejecting enjoyment. It's about using pleasure to fuel growth, connection, and meaning rather than allowing it to distract or derail us. The first step is to reevaluate your choices, especially those small, daily decisions that seem insignificant but cumulatively shape your life. Before you reach for your phone to scroll mindlessly or settle in for another binge-watching session, ask yourself, is this action contributing to the life I want to create? This simple pause allows you to step out of autopilot mode and act with intention. Consider how often we engage in activities out of habit rather than choice. For example, reaching for your phone first thing in the morning might feel automatic, But it's worth questioning whether this habit sets a productive tone for your day or simply fills the space with distraction. One practical way to approach this is to replace mindless consumption with purposeful action. Instead of scrolling through Instagram, you could spend that time journaling or planning your day. Instead of watching hours of Netflix, you could read a book that inspires or educates you. These choices might not provide the same instant gratification, but they contribute to a deeper sense of fulfillment over time. The key is to align your actions with your long-term goals and values, rather than letting short-term impulses dictate your behavior. Investing in experiences rather than consumption is another way to transform pleasure into growth. Modern culture often equates happiness with acquiring things, whether it's the latest gadget, trendy clothing, or an upgraded car. But research consistently shows that experiences, not possessions, bring the most lasting joy. Think about a memorable trip you've taken, a concert you attended, or a meal you shared with loved ones. These moments stick with you not because of what you consumed, but because of the connection, creativity, and meaning they involved. For example, consider the difference between buying an expensive piece of furniture and hosting a dinner party with friends. The furniture might give you a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but the dinner party creates memories, strengthens relationships, and offers a sense of belonging that far outweighs the joy of a material purchase. Similarly, instead of buying the latest tech gadget, you might invest in a photography class or a weekend hiking trip, activities that engage your mind, body, and spirit in ways that consumption simply can't. Transforming pleasure into growth also involves creating rather than merely consuming. There's a profound satisfaction in building something with your own hands or expressing yourself through a creative medium. This might mean painting, writing, gardening, or even cooking a meal from scratch. The act of creation engages your senses and your mind, giving you a sense of accomplishment that passive consumption can never replicate. For instance, baking a cake might take more effort than buying one from a store, but the pride and joy you feel when sharing it with others is far more rewarding. Connection is another crucial element in redefining pleasure. True satisfaction often comes not from what we do alone, but from what we share with others. Deep, meaningful relationships require effort, but they are one of the most reliable sources of happiness. Take time to nurture these connections, whether it's through a heartfelt conversation, a shared hobby, or simply being present for someone who needs support. For example, instead of spending hours texting or liking posts on social media, consider inviting a friend for coffee or calling a family member to catch up. These real-world interactions bring a level of depth and fulfillment that digital connections rarely provide. It's also important to recognize that growth often involves discomfort, and learning to embrace this discomfort is key to transforming pleasure into a tool for personal development. The most meaningful pleasures are often those that come after effort and struggle. Think about the satisfaction of completing a challenging project at work, mastering a new skill, or finishing a long-distance run. These experiences require perseverance, but the joy you feel afterward is far more profound than the fleeting pleasure of an easy distraction. As Nietzsche observed, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." When your actions are guided by purpose, even the challenges you face become meaningful. This doesn't mean that all pleasure must be tied to productivity. There is value in rest and relaxation, but the way we approach it matters. Rest should be restorative, not escapist. Instead of zoning out in front of the TV, consider taking a mindful walk in nature, practicing meditation, or simply sitting quietly with your thoughts. These activities help you recharge in a way that reconnects you with yourself rather than pulling you further away. Viktor Frankl's insight that life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose, serves as a powerful reminder of why this transformation is so important. When pleasure is divorced from purpose, it becomes hollow, an endless chase for something that never truly satisfies. But when pleasure is aligned with meaning, it becomes a powerful ally in the pursuit of a fulfilling life. This alignment allows us to enjoy life's pleasures without being enslaved by them, to find joy in both effort and ease, and to create a life that reflects our deepest values and aspirations. As we continue to explore how to integrate these practices into our daily lives, we uncover the potential to reshape not only our relationship with pleasure, but also the way we approach growth, connection, and purpose. This journey is about more than self-improvement. It's about rediscovering what it means to live fully, intentionally, and authentically. The next step is to consider how these principles can be applied on a broader scale, influencing not just our individual lives, but also the communities and systems we are a part of. What would it look like to build a society that values meaningful pleasure over mindless distraction? The answers lie in the choices we make, both as individuals and as a collective. The journey to reclaiming autonomy starts with a simple but profound realization. Much of what we do is reactive. Modern life is filled with stimuli, from the constant buzz of notifications to the endless options streaming across our screens. These stimuli aren't just distractions. They shape our actions, our priorities, and ultimately, who we become. The challenge lies in breaking free from this cycle, stepping out of autopilot mode, and asking ourselves whether we're truly living intentionally or merely reacting to what's placed before us. Intentional living isn't about rejecting pleasure or abandoning comfort. It's about rethinking what pleasure means and how it fits into a meaningful life. True pleasure doesn't come from chasing every fleeting gratification, but from aligning our choices with our values and long-term aspirations. When we pause to reflect, we might find that many of the things we pursue out of habit don't bring us the fulfillment we expect. For instance, scrolling through social media might feel like a harmless way to unwind, but it often leaves us feeling disconnected, drained, or even anxious. These moments of realization are the first step toward reclaiming our autonomy. Imagine waking up in the morning and instead of reaching for your phone, taking a few moments to set an intention for the day. What kind of person do you want to be today? What small actions can you take to move closer to your goals? These questions may seem simple, but they can profoundly change the way you approach your life. By starting each day with clarity, you set the tone for a life lived on your own terms rather than one dictated by external demands or distractions. The choices we make each day are like small investments in the person we want to become. Every time you choose to prioritize something meaningful over a fleeting distraction, you strengthen your sense of purpose and agency. For example, instead of binge watching a show, you might decide to read a book that expands your understanding of the world or spend time on a hobby that challenges and fulfills you. These activities not only provide deeper satisfaction, but also build skills, knowledge, and connections that contribute to a more meaningful life. Reclaiming autonomy also involves rethinking how we approach relationships. In a world that increasingly values individualism and superficial interactions, meaningful connections require intentional effort. It's easy to fall into the habit of texting or liking posts instead of calling someone or meeting face-to-face. Yet, the depth of a real conversation, the shared laughter, or even the silent moments of understanding with someone you care about far outweigh the shallow validation of a like. These moments remind us of what it means to be human and bring a sense of belonging that no algorithm can replicate. This intentionality extends to how we engage with the broader world. A distracted society often prioritizes convenience over commitment, making it easy to avoid challenging issues or meaningful action. For instance, when faced with global challenges like climate change or social inequality, it's tempting to feel powerless and retreat into distractions. But meaningful change begins with small, intentional actions. It might be as simple as reducing waste, supporting local businesses, or volunteering for a cause you believe in. These actions not only make a difference, but also reconnect us with a sense of purpose and agency. The process of reclaiming autonomy isn't without its challenges. It requires us to confront uncomfortable truths about our habits, our priorities, and even our identities. But it's in this discomfort that growth happens. Just as muscles grow stronger through resistance, our capacity for intentional living strengthens when we face and overcome these challenges. It's not about striving for perfection, but about making progress, about being just a little more intentional today than you were yesterday. One of the most powerful tools for living intentionally is mindfulness. By practicing mindfulness, we create space to observe our thoughts, emotions, and actions without judgment. This awareness allows us to break free from reactive patterns and make choices that align with our values. For instance, the next time you feel the urge to scroll through social media, pause and ask yourself what you're really seeking. Is it connection, inspiration, or simply a way to fill time? Once you identify the underlying need, you can choose an action that genuinely fulfills it, calling a friend, going for a walk, or engaging in a creative activity. As we begin to live more intentionally, we also start to notice the deeper joys that come from purpose, growth, and authentic connection. These joys aren't flashy or immediate. They're the kind that quietly enrich our lives over time. They come from the satisfaction of working toward a goal, the warmth of meaningful relationships, and the peace of knowing that our actions align with our values. They're the kind of joys that can't be bought, streamed, or swiped through. They must be cultivated. The question, then, is how we choose to move forward. Will we continue to be spectators, letting life happen to us? Or will we step into the role of protagonists, shaping our own stories? This isn't a question with a single answer. It's one we must ask ourselves every day. With every choice we make, living intentionally is a journey, not a destination. It's a process of continually reflecting, learning, and growing. And as we move forward, it's worth considering how these principles can extend beyond our individual lives. What would it look like to build communities, workplaces, and societies that value purpose over distraction, connection over consumption, and growth over complacency? These are the questions that can guide us as we explore what it truly means to live and not just exist. So now that we've unpacked the hidden costs of distraction and the power of living intentionally, it's time to ask yourself the big question. Are you living as the protagonist of your life? Or have you been stuck in the background, letting external forces dictate your story? Remember, reclaiming your autonomy isn't about making drastic changes overnight. It's about small, intentional steps. Every choice you make today shapes the person you'll be tomorrow. And here's the truth. The journey to a meaningful life doesn't have to be lonely. We're building a community here, one that values purpose over distractions, growth over complacency, and connection over superficiality. If this video has sparked something in you, if it's challenged you to think differently, then do me a favor, hit the like button to let me know. Share this video with someone who might need this reminder. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next step in this journey. Also, if you want to take an extra step in supporting this channel and being a part of something bigger, hit the super thanks button below. Your support allows us to keep creating content that goes beyond surface level entertainment and dives into topics that truly matter. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being part of this conversation. Your journey to purpose starts here, and I can't wait to see where it takes you. Until next time, remember to live intentionally, and I'll see you in the next video.